Hi, I'm Bob Trask, and this is our weekly reset. Thanks for being with me. Today, we're going to talk about something I think you're going to find really fascinating. Spiritual mastery arises from innocence. Spiritual mastery, self-mastery, arises from innocence. You know, we're creatures of nature. Now, that's not to just be taken lightly. Nature is the only God there is. Nature is sacred. I'm not just talking about trees and bees. I'm talking about the power that is creating trees and bees. That power is wisdom. All the wisdom of all universes in all time and space. And that wisdom is alive. As the trees and the bees are alive, as you and I are alive. That magnificent presence lives inside of you as you. And it's not fallible. It's not guilty of anything. It's pure and complete and perfect. Exactly the way it is. And it's evolving, isn't it? That magnificent presence inside of you that is you is evolving, it's changing and growing. And the omnipresence of all. That's the magical and most wonderful thing about life. The magical and most wonderful thing about life. Magical. Magical. Magical and beautiful and wonderful beyond belief. It has a being, that presence, and it's alive, that presence, and it's wise and it's intelligent, that presence. And we are that being, each one of us, an omnipresence. Then answer me this question. How could you have shame? How could you have guilt? How could you be anything other than divine? The trees and the bees are divine, aren't they? They're in manifest of all, aren't you? Doesn't that great spirit heal everything as it happens? The great actor and producer Tobey Maguire said, I might have some character traits that some might see as innocent or naive. That's because I've discovered peace and happiness in my soul. And with this knowledge, I also see the beauty of human life. You know, a man came to our house and to our home with his tractor. A dear friend, Kenny, brought his tractor and came over in our backyard to level the yard out and to make it ready for our raised gardens and the other things that we were going to do. And as he was working, there's a beautiful ponderosa pine tree in our backyard, and swinging his tractor around, the shovel hit the tree and took a big chunk of bark out of it and left a wound in that tree. He was apologetic and he felt bad, but we forgave him and said that the tree's not the same as it was. It has a new look, but it's still perfect. And you know what? That tree healed, and it now has a lovely scar on its side. And it's a mark of experience. Think of yourself as a tree right now. It was a mark of experience. The tree had an experience, and now it's expressing that experience with its wound, with its scar. It's not in any way diminished. It's still magnificent. And how could you not be? How could you not be healed? Are you any less perfect than that tree? And what if I had not forgiven that dear friend, that dear man? What if every time I looked at the scar on that tree, it would be with regret or resentment? Wouldn't I also then be wounded? Wouldn't I also be bleeding? And how long would my wound bleed? For the rest of my life? And that tree would have its bark ripped away and would never heal? It would bleed sap down its lovely trunk forever? Are you kidding me? That's not the way nature works. That's not the way God works. That's not the way Holy Spirit works. It heals, instantly heals. Otherwise, that tractor driver would be in regret every time he thought about us in our home. And what would my energy and consciousness, his energy and consciousness, and the energy and consciousness of that tree be then? Do you have a place where the bark's been taken out of you? And do you still have some unforgiveness going on? Forgiveness, a word used, I think, way too easily and often without true meaning. Let's think forgiveness for a moment. Let's think about that, the word forgiveness, forgiveness, giving forward, saying that from this point on, all is well. There's been a scar left, and it's lovely. Allow it to be as it is in my mind, and I accept it completely. Acceptance. Acceptance. The most important part of forgiveness. Stop fighting. The scar is, the chunk of the tree is gone. It isn't coming back today or tomorrow or ever. And if I allow the tree not only will heal, I will heal. And my dear friend Kenny, the tractor driver, will heal. And we'll all be healed. And we'll each one of us have a little memory. But it'll be a beautiful memory of an experience that made us greater. The tree now has a characteristic it didn't have before. It's beautiful. You have a characteristic you didn't have before, and it's beautiful. Kenny has a characteristic he didn't have before, and it's beautiful. We are growing. We are changing. We are becoming. And because I accept and because I forgive doesn't mean I still don't have some pain. When I think about that person who hurt me, I still have some pain. Like the tree, I've been scarred, and that scarred's now a part of me. But it was an experience that I welcome into my life because I accept it as a part of me now. I accept it as it is. I forgive it and I accept it. Every experience, please hear this. Every experience is a prayer. I don't care what it is, whether you think of it as negative or positive. Every experience is a prayer. Every experience is my experience. It's not the tree's experience. It's not Kenny's experience. It's not someone else's experience. That person hurt me, and now I'm hurt. And it has nothing to do with that person. I'm hurt. I am feeling my pain. That's my experience. Someone else might have said the same thing to me, and it just went over my head because it didn't mean anything. This person said it, and it hit me, boom, right in the heart, and it hurt. And every time I think back about it, it hurts again. It will always hurt for the rest of my life because I've been scarred. And the scar is divine. And I forgive it. I give it myself forward into the rest of my life. I give it. I stop expecting it to have been different or be different. Let's think here. What other choice do I have? If I don't accept it, then I live in permanent suffering. I said a minute ago that I'd be always in a little bit of pain when I thought about that, but pain and suffering are very different. Pain is mandatory. Life has pain. Suffering is optional. Suffering is the resistance to my pain. Suffering is resistance, always. Physical, mental, emotional. When I accept and forgive, then it just becomes pain, and pain is glorious. Pain is the music that plays in my soul. It's part of that music. Have you ever noticed that when you listen to love songs, very, very few of them are about how much I love you? Almost all of them are about how much I miss you. The music couldn't be written without pain. The greatest composer, Beethoven, who was deaf at 30 years old. Pain. Some of his greatest music came over the next 11 years of his writing. Accepting the pain and turning it into something. But you can't do that unless you're innocent, innocent, innocent. And if I accept the pain and accept the pain that comes up when I think back, then my life is again at peace. And that peace is not passive, not a quiet emptiness. At the moment I come into total acceptance of what is, I'm filled with grace. At the moment I come into total acceptance of what is, I'm filled with grace, filled with the flowing wisdom and energy of the great presence, the great beloved, divine, beautiful, joyful presence of life, of the wind, of the eagle hanging on the wind, of the great blue whale breaching out of the southern sea, of the mountain leaning against the sky with its beautiful white hat on. Then I'm one with everything. And I can live as the trees live, as the forest lives. Spend the rest of my life reaching for the light, in the light. We're talking about forgiveness, and forgiveness is probably one of the least understood of all concepts. Forgiveness isn't of someone else. Forgiveness is a state of mind, isn't it? It's a state of being. It hasn't got anything to do with other people and the wrongs they did to me or someone else. Forgiveness as a state of mind, as a state of being, allows me to be truly innocent. Truly innocent. And then I can't blame anyone else because I don't see anyone else as blameful, because blame is no longer a part of my reality. It isn't in my vocabulary, blame and shame. And yeah, ugly things happen. But please hear this. Once they happen, they're no longer ugly. Once they happen, they're truth. The scar on the tree is permanent. They're truth. And I can either accept that truth, or I can deny it, or I can resist it, or I can hate it. But nothing I can do is going to change it, because it's now truth. Like the mountain and the sea and the eagle and the blue whale. It's truth. And my innocence lets me be free of judgment. My innocence lets me be free of judgment. And that's the most beautiful word in the world, freedom. My spirit's set free. And it doesn't mean I'm not going to work for a better world. It means just the opposite. When I'm in my purity, in my innocence, I'm ultimately powerful. When I'm in resistance, I've enlisted myself into the arms of the problem, of the dark situation, and then I become one with its darkness. Then I'm powerless. Malala Yousafzai, the 15-year-old Pakistani girl who was shot in the head by the Taliban for standing up for the rights of girls going back to school, said this. She's 15 years old, shot in the head. She said, "I am stronger than fear." She also said this, and I really want you to hear it. As I read it, it changed me inside. See if it does this for you. Malala Yousafzai said, "I do not even hate the Taliban who shot me. Even if there was a gun in my hand and he was standing in front of me, I would not shoot him." This is the compassion I've learned from Muhammad, the prophet of mercy, from Jesus Christ and Lord Buddha. This, the legacy of change I have inherited from Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, and Muhammad Ali Jinnah. This is the philosophy of nonviolence I've learned from Gandhi, Baka Khan, and Mother Teresa. This is the forgiveness that I've learned from my father and from my mother. This is what my soul is telling me. Be peaceful and love everyone. 15 years old. She's our teacher. See, the thing is that God bless her sweetheart. Somehow she grew up to be 15 years old in an area where women were pushed down, where women were told to cover themselves, where women were told they weren't equal to men, where women were told they didn't matter. And she wanted to go to school, and she wanted other girls to go to school, and she fought for that. And she didn't just get shot. You know that before that she was really pilloried. You know that before that she was being put down and cussed at and shouted at and probably assaulted physically. You know that her life was not going on easily, and she kept it up and kept it up. And finally, they had to shoot her and they had to shut her up, and it didn't shut her up. Why? Because she had that innocence inside of her. She didn't get wounded. She didn't have her innocence taken away from her. She didn't. She didn't do that. This is the compassion I learned from Muhammad, from the prophet of mercy, from Jesus of Nazareth, from Lord Buddha. This is the legacy of change I inherited from Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, and Muhammad Ali. This is the philosophy of nonviolence that I've learned from Gandhi, from Baka Khan, from Mother Teresa. And this is the forgiveness that I've learned from my father and my mother. This is what my soul is telling me. Be peaceful and love everyone. Be innocent. Be innocent. My dear heart, we didn't come here to suffer. We didn't. We did not come here to suffer. Suffering is optional. We don't have to suffer. We can accept the wound and let it show a beautiful scar and go on. We came here to grow in wisdom and joy. Those two are eternal wisdom and joy. They're the descriptions of that great presence, wisdom and joy. From the great mind of Pierre Teilhard Chardin comes these words to guide us. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. He also said, and please hear this, joy is the infallible sign of the presence of God. So if I'm looking for a sign, if I'm saying to God, give me a sign so I'll know you're real, then be in joy, because joy is the infallible sign of the presence of God. And you can't find God out of without joy. I am sorry you suffering penitence. I'm sorry those of you who are suffering for your sins or whatever you believe about yourself. But joy is the infallible sign of the presence of God. And incidentally, Chardin was a Jesuit bishop. He wasn't some New Thought guy just out floating around. He was a Jesuit bishop. He knew the church inside and out. And still he said, without joy, there is no God. Miguel Angel Ruiz said this, just imagine becoming the way you used to be as a very young child, before you understood the meaning of any word, before opinions took over your mind. The real you is loving, joyful, and free. The real you is just like a flower, just like the wind, just like the ocean, just like the sun. That's you he's describing. So you and I have some work to do, don't we? We have to look at ourselves and we have to say, what are my regrets? And isn't it a fact that that regret is still bleeding down the trunk of my tree? And that resentment is still bleeding down my heart. And if I were willing to let it be the way it is and accept it as the way it is and a part of my life that was supposed to be there, it was supposed to be there. How can I say that? Because it is. Because it is truth. So it is supposed to be there. And I'm supposed to have pain when I think about it. But I'm not supposed to become suffering. I'm supposed to accept the pain and let it become glorious. Let it become beautiful pain. Let it become the music of my soul. Let it touch the colors of the roses and of the sunsets and of the reflections of lights on water. Let it become the imagination of greatness. Let it become what happens inside of me when I look up and watch an eagle hanging on grace, soaring against the sky. Let it be that pain be real for me. And know that I'm bigger than that. And that I'm not my fear. Again, Senor Ruiz said, just imagine becoming the way you used to be as a very young child before you understood the meaning of any word, before opinions took over your mind. The real you is loving, joyful, and free. The real you is just like a flower, just like the wind, just like the ocean, just like the sun. And dear John Updike, one of my favorite authors, I'll finish with him today. He said, the essential self is innocent. And when it tastes its own innocence, knows that it lives forever. The essential self is innocent, and when it tastes its own innocence, knows that it lives forever. You are innocent. If you need to be forgiven, please hear, you are forgiven. You are forgiven. Now set yourself free. Jesus comes to a leper. I think it was a leper. It could have been another kind of, I don't remember, another kind of crippled person. And he says, you're forgiven. Pick up your pallet and walk. And the guy picks up his pallet and walks. And a Pharisee, there's two powerful groups in the in the Jewish religion at that time. There's the Sadducees and the Pharisees. They are a little bit in contestants with each other, but those two groups are the wise men of the Jewish religion. And there's a Pharisee there, and he says to Jesus, "What right do you have to forgive sins?" And Jesus said to him, "What difference does it make whether I say you're forgiven or you're healed?" Aha. If I say you're innocent, then you're healed. You want to be healed? You want to get past all the nonsense and the pain and the disruptions in your beautiful, 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 beautiful life? Then be innocent. Then accept your forgiveness. Hear the words of Jesus. Hear my words. Hear the words of all the prophets. You are forgiven. Now pick up your pallet and go. I'm going to finish today by asking you that if you think that these messages are important, I can tell you, I got a class going on that's even more powerful. It just goes on and on. And it's in a 6-week course, and the first week is gone, but you can catch up easily. It's based on my book, Romancing the Soul. Get the book, come and join the class. You can find at bobtrask.com, you can find the link to go into that class every Thursday morning at 11:30, from 11:30 until 1. Life-changing. Also, my book, oh my gosh, my book, not Romancing the Soul, my book, Up She Falls, a novel of a wonderful, powerful woman who came into the light and fought it all the way, and finally was overcome with beauty and love and forgiveness and innocence, and became a powerful peace worker in a hostile world. I think you're going to love that book. It's on Amazon.com. While you're at bobtrask.com, please leave a donation so we can keep these good Sunday resets going. And because also I need the money to continue my work in the world. Bless you, bless you, bless you. And if you can hang around for the next half hour, we're going to be discussing some of the things we've talked about here. And you're sure welcome to join us.